Russia. I didn't really have a lot of like political knowledge or anything. I always wanted to visit Russia. I went to school with Russian kids. Even in college, I came to school and was like more open to Russian people because they come from the countries to, come down here to get education. So to me, I was just more so interested in seeing what their life was like.
When I first think about Russia, I think St. Petersburg tennis players, because some of the best tennis players are from Russia, and Putin. That's what I think of.
I think that Russia's kind of like, it's like in a different country, kind of a little bit. The media portrays it kind of like in a harsh way. I'm not sure what the reason for it is, but I feel like the media kind of attacks it in a way, sort of way. Personally, I have absolutely no problem with it. I've had the pleasant experience of being able to meet different Russians. And so every time I meet one, there's super happy people. They don't really let their customs kind of get in the way of being polite or mannerable, and they're just like super fun to hang out with and have conversations with.
Very cold and big country that has a lot of power.
Coming from like an athlete's perspective, I usually think about sports rather than the political side of things. I think of how, even stemming from the USSR, how much of an impact on the sports world they have.
I think it's just another brand of, just styles of living. And just think about sports as like, if there's two teams always competing against, being the best, that will always be the fiercest rivalry.
When I used to think about Russia, I thought it was this cold, scary place where like, if you went to the airport, you would get bombed and die. I honestly had like highly negative views of Russia because the high school that I went to spoke negatively about Russia, and especially in the history and the textbooks. As I grew older and met different people from different places, I realized that my depiction was biased and that Russia is a beautiful country, and I'm very interested in going there one day.
I just feel like there are people just like us doing their own thing. They just have a different way of going about it. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just are just like us and they go about their lives and they live just the same way we do.
I love them. They're really, really happy and they're really curious about learning new things. I took a trip to Italy and Greece, and a couple of people that came with us were Russian, and they were like way more curious than we were about learning about Italian culture and Greek culture and things of that nature. They're just super curious about the world, especially outside of theirs.
I love Russian people. They're very funny, very loud, which makes them funny, and have a lot of energy. So it's great. It's great.
Before I came to Hampton, I had kind of a perspective of them being very like cold and like off-putting. And then I came here and I met like two Russian people, and they were just really, really nice people.
They're nice. Their accent is obviously heavier. That's the number one thing I think about is the heavier accent. I always know them as being good partiers, nothing like here in the States where it's all ludicrous. They actually party, have a good time. They're really easygoing. They're not really too outspoken against things that are, in the system of things. They just kind of let things go and move on to the next day and everything.
Now I think Russians are really, really cool people. Before, I didn't know any Russians, so I would think they're just cold people that kind of wouldn't understand how Americans work. But now that I know a couple of Russian people that go to my school, a handful of Russian people, they're sweet, they're kind, they're brutally honest, and they're just fun to be around, and most importantly, they're real people.
I feel like it's negatively. More so, I feel like from the political stance. I don't really watch political stuff, but I know like Trump and everything that's going on. I've seen all that stuff. I know there's been a lot of back and forth for a long time, not just now, but even now though, it's just a lot more out there. And I don't know if it's because the media is just strong or, we have different outlets in media, but I feel like it's negative. I do feel like it's negative.
And it's very harsh people just from historical views.
Mainly, they're usually portrayed kind of as like harsh, vodka drinking, just completely unapologetic, just rude people. I think that's how like America views them. From that, people then start to sprout out little stereotypes that then kind of grow into like a branch effect.
I think in society, some people think they're bad people because they're always very loud, and people don't really know what they're talking about because their language is so really rough and tough, like so I think that makes them look bad, but they're really great people.
The stereotype about Russians is I guess the socialism aspect of things, considered as equal, and no one has the individuality of what people here in the States have. We are learned or portrayed that Russians don't really have a voice of one person.
The way that Russia is portrayed is in a negative way. America always ties criticize Russia to everything, whether it's false or whether it's true, but it's never in a positive manner. It's always in a negative way. So as Americans, including myself, it makes us think that Russians are shady, that we shouldn't mess with Russians because they might kill us or tie us up. Just crazy nonsense that is not true. And it's a stereotype that needs to be broken.
Lots of interactions with international students. It's been great. So I try to base it on my interactions, not what the news says. But I try not to focus any of my opinions on that.
It's a mix. It's a nice, healthy mix, kind of from school, things that I've learned from school, and then my own personal interactions with Russian people, and then learning things from different people that I was able to talk to. The people on that trip that I went to in Italy and Greece told me not a lot about their culture, but it was enough to understand that the things that the media were saying were completely untrue, and it was all based from speculation and stereotypes.
Things you hear about on TV, you see, they're always in the news about something. So looking at that, and then looking at some people who I know who are Russian, and they're great people, very funny, very loud, very aggressive at times, but it's great.
Personally, I like to meet people before I judge them, even though a little bit of that is still in the back of your head just because it's been pounded into your head because of society and the media and everything. But I like to give people the benefit of the doubt and definitely think about them as a person rather than them as a Russian.
Everything I learned about Russians, obviously I always look at the history books, but Russia has always been curious with me about their history of them. I like what I said about history, but I also base upon it with interaction, because you can't just base it off of stereotypes. You have to actually go in and dive into things, and that's what schools taught me, and interactions with people in general have taught me.
I base my opinion on, of course, my own experiences and stuff that I've read. I can't say I base it on the media anymore because I've realized that the media alters everything that's shown on TV and the newspaper, etc. So I feel because of my own experiences that I have become friends with Russians or encountered Russian people, that the stereotype has changed in a positive way. And I love Russian people. I love being around them. And some of my best friends are Russian, and my boyfriend's Russian, so I think that's pretty cool.